Coach Day lightning round. Austin Ward.
Ryan, Jim was talking about some gloves that Davison was wearing in practice. He's like, oven mitts, what are you doing there?
Yeah, it's just something that a lot of folks use, and we do too. In this situation, we felt it was usually during preseason camp or spring practice. Usually using one-on-ones. We brought him out for the entire practice just so that you can't grab, which hurts you a little bit on the line of scrimmage. But then once you clear that 5 yards, you train yourself to run with guys and not grab. And had a couple really good reps today, and so I thought it was a good idea.
Spencer Olbrich, Letterman Row.
Ryan, at Oregon, Donovan was doing the salad count ready. If he has to move or anything like that, how much does that throw a wrinkle into how you guys have to operate and deal with the salad count?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big challenge, as you know, and going on the road, that's a big part of, going into that environment is handling that. And that's the challenge for those guys. They know that. You could probably hear the loud noise when you were in here just, during practice. And, we try to make it as loud as we possibly can and simulate what it's going to be like. And so, we've had multiple guys make sure that we've done that in preseason camp. We do it in the spring. And obviously we're doing it now during this week and leading into the Oregon week, bye week. We did all those things. So, guys have reps at it, but it takes discipline, so, we had multiple guys do it. And so, we feel confident going to the game that we're going to be able to handle it.
Kellyanne Snitz, WSYX.
Hey, Ryan. Would Zen be considered day-to-day, and how is he looking for practice?
Yeah, I would say it's trending that he's not going to play. So we'll keep evaluating it. But, I think, we got a pretty good plan moving forward.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
What are your plans to tackle
I'm going to save that for Saturday.
Tim May, Letterman Row.
Caleb Downs, has he delivered what you thought he would, especially like in Oregon? I mean, that was a tough game, et cetera. But how have you seen him rise to the occasion, so to speak?
Yeah, no, he's a tremendous player, and you can see him just flying around the last 3-4 games, just making plays, and always around the ball, fast to trigger. We're able to get him in as a returner, even have more of an impact on the game. So he's doing a lot of things for us, and yeah, he's a tremendous player.
Bill Rabinowitz.
What's Lathan's status?
Yeah, he had a great day of practice today, full practice, ready to go. Yes.
Dylan Davis.
When I asked you about the number of snaps that he gets the last game behind your guys, and I asked Jim Rose that same thing, he kind of said that he'd approach Steve Larry and whatever Larry decides what's best for him. But as the sort of head coach of the defense, is that, I know you want to be like that, but if there's kind of some, dissension now is the right word, but there's kind of a difference there and ideals there. Would it be on Jim Rose to kind of take hold of that and say, hey, these guys need to play more? You said you want to see them play more?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we got to win a game. That's the first thing. So whatever, we feel like going into the game is the right thing. And, we certainly take the opinions of the assistant coaches, but at the end of the day, I'm the head coach. So, it goes through me. And so, yeah, I think, we need to continue to roll guys. We'll roll guys. Now, how many reps? That's different. I mean, in that Oregon game, every rep counts in that game. So, we got to, make sure that, we're doing everything we can to be fresh in the fourth quarter for sure. But we also got to do everything we can to win a game. So, we will rotate some guys in there. But, we'll, again, evaluate as we get closer to the game. But we're obviously rotating guys in practice. And, we want to be fresh in the fourth quarter.
And last question, Stefan Kreisny.
You talked earlier this year. There was a game where I think it was the active game where it felt like Jack was getting in the backfield, maybe not getting sacks, but still impacting the game. Does it feel like a guy like Jack or JT's kind of close to having that breakout game, that big game this year to really kind of change a game?
They're certainly they want to. They're pushing hard. They had a really good practice today and another edgy practice out there, and so they're in these type of games, our best players have to play well. That was the message to the team. Our leaders got to lead, and our best players have to play well in games like this. And so, I know that they're pushing hard to make sure they're playing their best game.
Great, Coach. Thank you very much.
Guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bill was bad-mouthing my selection of players, so I think when I told them, I say this to all of y'all. Those were Rabinowitz.
didn't anticipate that. So,
But several people did. Guys, get your buckets. Don't forget the December 10th, Vegas.
You had me at Vegas.
Well, probably, you guys probably may do that next year.
Oh yeah.
Did he win 2 national titles?
He was here longer. Yeah. He's not that hard to find.
No, that's it. Who has done more at one school?
Bill, leave him the hell alone. Mikey's not doing his job.
Right.
Players here now.
Again, I'm not saying I see. You think he'll use all 3 days?
No, not the way it's looking. Is WHIZ here? Wiz out of, where's Wiz? Zanesville, yeah. No one here from the Wiz?
I'm basically the Wiz, and nobody beats him.
You get caught in a lie. Keep going. Just keep going. It's one of those things where it's like they have to fight for it once. They just keep it like it's like the Legion of Boom. £260 natural grass. I mean, it's a pair of, yeah, natural grass. That's the top. Is it about position? Exactly. No, I was actually the guy. I had to. I see. I was the people that I'm on the phone. I was
Otherwise, actually keep it the other way. Yeah, continue the house. Yeah, I was middle. That's what I was doing. I wasn't ahead. I don't think this. Maybe. Because Austin Servo has never. What kind of challenge is again, we just do the Jeremiah thing, which 40 people are just between us. Still walking like it's pigeon toe disease. Who's to say if that's the I feel like there would be a that's a crazy sentence. He's one of the best athletes in the country for his age. I just don't think he can walk. I used honestly, that's a you know what would happen too? They're gonna be tied 2020. Jumping out routes, they're gonna have to clamp it on the wall. Ohio State by 1. I think that was. You also have been watching some of the lower level Big Ten teams quarterback play. Have you seen Michigan try to throw the football? They can't do it.
Folks, we have Lorenzo Styles on the 20.
Lorenzo, you had said earlier this season this is the most fun you've had playing football in your career. What was it like to see real extended action on the defense side of that?
I mean, it was a good opportunity. It was definitely a good game. Not one that I expected to go down the wire like that, but sometimes it goes like that. So a lot of the situations and stuff that we talked about, we went out there and we executed. So it was just fun to be a part of that.
Lorenzo, what's the challenge when you don't know who the quarterback's going to be and they're very different types of quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to plan for a lot of different things. It just extends that a little bit. So we got to just be very, very conscious in our studying, like who's going to be in there, what are their different skill sets and things of that nature. Not necessarily, but there's always getting some work with the scouts and quarterbacks anyway, so we get different feels. I mean, he's a good football player, so we got to know where he's at on the field. But we just got to honestly just trust our scheme, trust our defense. I like our players a lot, so when we have that matchup, whoever has that matchup, they just have to go win that.
How much do you feel like you can help with that, being a nickel in that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I go out there and I cover, so they don't really, they put him out a lot. He's not really in there, pass blocking a lot, so he's gonna be seen out there with the nickels, the safety. So there's gonna be a lot of times we're gonna have to cover in man. So when it's our time to cover him, we just gotta go do our job.
Lorenzo, when you play a lot of snaps, especially like last weekend, do you still think like a receiver at times?
Yeah, I mean, I get a feel for routes early on. But yeah, I think just in my training, like understanding the route combination and what they want to run on different down and distances is it's helped me out.
Or it's fitting the run, defending the run against this team. What kind of stands out about these running backs that makes it hard to bring down?
Yeah, they're big backs. They're both over 220, so they're going to run downhill. They play with good pad levels, so they're going to put their pads low. So as a nickel like me, I got to just make sure I run through their outside leg and get them down.
What goes through your mind when there are two quarterbacks on the field at the same time?
I mean, 9, they've actually split him out a little bit, so they actually might throw him the ball a little bit. But 15, we just got to go. If we have to guard him or whatever our assignment is, we got to go execute it. I mean, that's a quarterback, so we should make sure we handle that.
How the Oregon game went, how hungry are you guys as a defense to prove yourselves in another top 5 game?
Definitely. I don't really think it took the Oregon game to wake us up like that, but it was definitely. I mean, it was part of our season, so we got to just go bounce back overall as a defense, as a team, and use that to ignite a fire in us for sure.
One of the leaders of the special teams unit, where do you feel like you guys are at right now through 7 games, and where do you need to be at?
I mean, I think we got to continue to get better. We don't really have any blocks yet, really, or we don't really have any touchdowns on special teams. So we got to make sure we got to be game changers in that space. I feel like, so we got to continue to improve.
Anything else for Lorenzo? Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bennett.
All right. Yeah, man.
Folks, we got Bennett Christian on the 20.
That's what I said too.
How's it going, guys?
How are you?
Good, thank you.
And when you guys are down a couple left tackles, how important is the tight end to help protect this week at Penn State?
Yeah, I mean, our group, we got to do everything. We got to run the ball. We got to run people over. We got to block. We run routes. So missing another O-lineman, we got to step up even more than we already did. Maybe that's helping with the ends on pass pro or run block. And they got to feel us this week for sure.
How would you just evaluate the way you've played so far this season?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I don't put limits on my play or try to really be a big critique. I just kind of go out there and play and let God do the rest. So I think it's going pretty well so far.
How just good has it felt just to be out there this year after you had to
Yeah.
watch all last season?
As you can, I mean, it feels amazing. It's just so rewarding, just putting in all the work last year and then see it come on the field now has been great.
For you guys, just as a tight end unit, how do you feel like where are you guys at?
Yeah.
What you guys need to do to elevate yourselves in the second half of this year?
Yeah. I think right now we're in a pretty good spot. I mean, losing Will was a huge loss for us, and I hate it for him, but he's a fighter and he's gonna get back really, really quick. But for us, we just got to continue building the depth, and everyone is rolling in and going super hard and giving the best effort possible.
Have you felt more weight on your shoulders since Will went down to be more of a leader in that role?
I mean, not really. I try to be a leader no matter who's in the room, and losing Will, it's tough on him, but we have so much depth and guys are rolling, so whatever my role has to be, I know I'm gonna embrace it.
What was your biggest focus this week in terms of the run game, run blocking, trying to shore up some things maybe from last week as a unit you guys were able to do?
Yeah, I feel like not much has really changed. It's more simple. We're gonna run downhill and hit the guys in the mouth, so really not much difference there.
What do the challenges look like blocking a pass rush like Penn State's?
Yeah, I mean they're a really good team. You can see it all over the film. But I think we've trained so hard. I think we just got to trust our training, not remember or not learn as you go, but remember your training when the time comes.
Bennett, where do you feel you're at right now as a pass catcher?
I feel like I'm in a good spot, man. I've been working for 2.5 years, so I'm just ready to let it loose more.
What does that look like when you're working especially on catching passes during the week? What does that routine look like for you?
Yeah, Tuesdays and Wednesdays after practice, we catch probably 50 balls on the jug machine, me and our GA, Coach Binks. But throughout the week, we're working 7-on-7. I'm always catching balls in scout team and even in teams. So, we're just trying to enhance everything we can here.
Has that become more mandatory instead of optional, that extra pass catching after practice?
No, it's optional.
How real is it to get your first hostile environment under your belt for a season, playing at Oregon?
Yeah.
How much does that help?
I really didn't have much game experience coming into the season, and now having that big game under my belt, I think it will help a lot going into this game for sure.
And even as a unit, as an offense, you guys had a few
Oh, yeah.
procedural penalties in that game, silent count, working all those things. You guys feel more ready for this?
Yeah, I would say so personally, but I mean, for the tight ends, Coach Key, we have a huge boombox playing just tons of music loud, so we're getting used to playing and doing everything in a loud environment. So I think we'll see some improvements there on Saturday.
Every time your number is called, what's the mindset you have?
My mindset is really just go as hard as you can and leave the rest up to the Lord. And I know I can't do it by myself, and so I think my faith has been a really big part of my more playing time this season. And every time I get an opportunity, I'm just trying to go as hard as I can.
How does playing in Oregon help you prepare for playing in stadiums that are loud but not necessarily your own?
Yeah, it's because you get used to the hostile environment. So when you're in a away stadium, it's gonna be loud when you're on offense, and when you're at home, it'll be less loud when you're on offense. So playing that, just learning how to play successfully on a silent cadence, is gonna help us a lot in the long run.
What are the challenges? What are the benefits of being on the silent count?
Yeah, the challenge is that you can't hear the quarterback. So if I'm going left and for a run block, I have to look to the right to see when the ball is snapped, and so you don't really know what's going on sometimes. So that's the challenges, but the benefits is that I know that they have to look at the ball too. So.
How much do you feel like you've developed as a blocker this year?
I think a lot, man. I mean, I think I've always been a good blocker, but I just been working my butt off every day, and I love the results I'm getting.
Anything else? Bennett, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
Thank you, Bennett.
No problem, guys.
Thanks, Bennett. Christian.
The hell, how did I get this off? That was Bennett. What is it? Did I say? Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, buddy. No problem.
Da-na-na-na. Your shirt is blue and mine is straight to.
Yeah, you're the one that told me. I'm going to go straight to
Good news, everyone. This is a very welcome, everyone, to a very, very special bonus episode of the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast. You already got a Ross Fulton episode on Wednesday evening talking about the Ohio State offense against Nebraska. Go watch that. Ross had some great stuff. That was an episode I was really looking forward to because even during the game I was thinking, oh man, I can't wait to talk to Ross about that. So that's the actual episode. Now you're getting a special bonus episode. This is big game coverage week, so you're getting some bonus coverage. Got some news this evening involving injuries in Ohio State, a couple different pieces of news. Let's start with, I think, the best news tonight for Ohio State, which is it sounds like safety Lathan Ransom should be good to go for Saturday.
Yeah, Ryan Day said he had a good day of practice. So usually when you're having a good day of practice on Wednesday, you should be able to have a good day of practice on Thursday, good walkthrough on Friday, and then be good to go for Saturday early afternoon for the Penn State game. So I think that's fantastic news for what this defense is going to need to do against both the run and Tyler Warren, the tight end.
Yeah, and we'll get into Tyler Warren a little bit more in just a little bit. Another piece of news for Ohio State on the injury front, not so good. Not a surprise at all, I don't think, but Ryan Day said it is now trending towards the fact that Zen Michalski, backup left tackle, likely not going to be able to go this week.
Yeah, so then Ryan Day gave us a great, very detailed explanation and plan of attack for how they're going to adjust offensive line now. Is that correct?
Yeah, he said find out on Saturday. And, you know,
that's the right answer, though.
That's the right answer. I think as the week has kind of gone along, I've sort of settled into what I think they might do because I think there's a sort of logical approach to things. One thing that I thought was interesting, Carnell Tate, when we were talking to Carnell Tate, he was asked about how the offensive line was doing this week in practice. Oh, yeah, it's good. It's good. And he said, I'm going to make sure I pull up the exact quote here. And the exact quote was, he referenced, quote, new guys in new places, and a plural on both of those. Yeah. So if I was to read into that, I think that would feed it what I'm sort of settling in on as the likely solution, which is this is a road game in a hostile atmosphere. It feels like that's a game where you're going to want to, if you're going to be shuffling anyway, you might want to have your veteran guys in there. And to me, and this is not me reporting, this is me sort of thinking this through and then hearing Carnell Tate say that, kind of going, to me, you have Donovan Jackson move out to your left tackle spot. You have Carson Hinsman, who we really have not talked about a ton this year, but who started all of last year. Yeah, if he can play that left guard spot, and listen, Ryan Day sort of acknowledged that he might be doing something of that nature at times this week. It feels like then you keep your center, your right guard, your right tackle, as they have been, Seth McLaughlin, Taylor Shabola, Josh Fryer. You have 5 guys who have all started meaningful games in hostile venues. You know, Carson Hinsman was a starter all of last year. You got new faces in new places. But it just, to me, that seems like that might be the most logical solution.
You've also got guys, Carson Hinsman and Donovan Jackson, that have played next to each other.
Correct.
So, and then also with the silent snap, the silent count, so far this year, it would be like Donovan Jackson tapping Seth McLaughlin to say, hey, you can snap now. Now you'll have, if it would be Carson Hinsman, you'd have a guy who's played center and can be that for Seth McLaughlin. And you're right, the experience that brings, just those 5 guys. And if it is those 5, you can kind of understand why they didn't want to go this route until they absolutely had to, because it is new guys, new places, if that's what they choose to do. And it's always better for just new guy in new place, or new guy in old place, new guy in same place, rather than new guys, new places. But I think we don't know how Donovan Jackson is going to play at left tackle. I have to imagine he's going to play better than what we saw last week.
Yeah, you're not replacing Josh Simmons at this point. You're replacing Zen Mahalski, who did not have a job. Absolutely terrified of is, it's overwhelming even now going on the road. And just knowing what we know about college football coaches, they are some of the most risk-averse people in the world. And control what you can control every possible thing that you can control. And, they want to stay in the same hotels, and they want to, it's great if you play in the same bowl game you played last year because you already know where the locker room is. And all
these
that.
are strawberry Crustables. We have grape.
Yes.
This is unacceptable.
Yeah. You don't want to throw that off. So, that the more I think about it, the more I think that might be where they go with things this week. We'll see. Ryan Day obviously was not interested at all in tipping his hand, but that's sort of the major injury news on the Ohio State side of things. Some interesting injury news on the Penn State side of things as well. Penn State media got to go watch some of practice tonight, and there were two. Yeah, I made the same face.
How is it possible
really?
they're undefeated and the media gets to watch practice?
Listen, is it a coincidence? I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. Might not be. Might be related. Either way, Drew Aller was out there, and it was just, this was kind of the stretching and jogging and yada, yada, yada. But Drew Aller was out there and moving around as if he was fine, which if you're 3 days out and you're moving around like you're fine, I think that increases the likelihood that I think Drew Aller plays. I'm expecting to see both Penn State quarterbacks potentially in the field at the same time. But it feels like that's potentially good news for Penn State. Deny Dennis Smith. Sutton? Is it Sutton? Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Sutton Smith.
All right.
Deny
Dennis Sutton. Sorry. Probably said that wrong 7 times this week then. He was not out there, so that's, and that was a groin injury from last week. I think that's one where you're maybe, and I would have, watching those two guys last week, Aller seemed like more like a tweak. Dennis Sutton seemed more like a maybe more than a tweak kind of thing. So not a huge surprise there, and I did not see any kind of material update on the right tackle situation, which is a whole separate conversation.
Yeah, with Sutton, he came back into the game for like one play, and it was like, I can't.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. But I do wonder, and I don't know if Drew Aller is talking this week.
I'm going to guess not.
What this game might mean for him playing against Ohio State and the loss last year, and wanting to get some sort of a measure of revenge, but also just this is a really, really big game for both starting quarterbacks, one from Ohio, one from Pennsylvania. You do the switcheroo on the team there, and that's who they play for. And I think if you are 70%, your blood wills you to 85 in this kind of game.
Yeah, and I think there's also a question of, okay, we don't know. Is Drew Aller 70%? Is Drew Aller 80%? Is Drew Aller 100%? I don't know at what point the lines cross, supply and demand lines there. At what point, Bo Prabula at 100% or as close as anyone is to 100% this time of year. At what point that line crosses with the below this point, it's better off if Drew Aller plays below, above this point. It's better off if, reverse that. But either way, I do get the sense you're probably going to see two quarterbacks on the field at the same time as well. I mean, the Penn State is, and we recorded a rewatch show of the Ohio State Wisconsin game, so you'll find that on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed a little later on Wednesday night. But I mean, I think broadly, Penn State just does a bunch of crazy crap on offense.
Yeah, and it's all. I heard Andy Kolonicki calls it blizzard toppings, basically. Like some people window dressing.
You can hold the Penn State upside down.
So that's what they've got there, and yeah, they'll do all kinds of weird stuff. There was one in the Wisconsin game where both quarterbacks are in, and an offensive line is running motion just to hand the ball off, in between tackles. It's like, what is all of this for? We're just trying to run the ball. But they'll do a bunch of different stuff. I asked Lorenzo Styles Jr., who we talked to, what do you think goes to your mind when there are two quarterbacks on field at the same time? Because they'll have one lined out wide. He's like, oh, if you're out there, you got to them.
Yeah.
Because at some point they're going to do something with that. And I think that's the other key to all of this is all of the pretend stuff and all of this made up crap that they've done.
Yeah.
At some point, something is going to come off of that. And this would be the kind of game where something comes off of that.
Right. I mean, this is clearly the biggest game on Penn State's regular season schedule. So if you have been saving something up, this is the game where you get the prestige. It's a magic term. You gotta the whole is you're watching the hand and you're not watching what's happening, away from where you're being distracted. That feels like this is a game where Penn State's going to, pay off a lot of that stuff.
I wonder, has Tyler Warren thrown the ball at all this year? He will line up as a wildcat. Are we expecting some sort of a jump pass to somebody in the goal line?
There was, I think, a Bo Prabula took a fake handoff and from Tyler Warren, and he just ran it straight ahead in a wildcat quarterback thing. I felt like he kind of looked over at Bo Prabula for just a second, and that might be something to pay off.
So your tight end is running RPOs at this point.
Your tight end is running RPOs and potentially throwing to your quarterback. Yeah, and I mean
he was a high school quarterback. They said. So.
Yeah, and he lines up at center. He lines up as a split out. He lines up as an inline tight end. He lines up in the backfield. He's a quarterback. It's all over the place. So that's going to be something that I'm sure Ohio State fans will get extremely annoyed watching on Saturday. Anything else of note from Ryan Day?
Not interested in talking about the offensive line. No, there wasn't. I mean, I took some notes.
It was brief. This was not.
It was not.
It was. We got maybe 5 minutes with Ryan Day, and then maybe 5 minutes with Lorenzo Styles, maybe 4 or 5 minutes with Carnell Tate, and then Bennett Christian as well. Bennett Christian talked about just how awesome it is to be back on the field. He missed all of last year with his suspension, so just how meaningful it is for him. And he's grown into a much bigger role this year. He was someone who came into the year, and we kind of went, what do you expect? Like, I don't know. I have no basis to make any kind of projection on that right now because you haven't seen him in any meaningful snaps in 18 months. So yeah, he has certainly, I think, turned into a much more significant player for this year's team than you might have expected.
Yeah, the defensive line rotation was happening. He's like, we got to continue to rotate, but the question was like, shouldn't Jim Knowles have more say in who plays? And Dave's like, ultimately it stops with me, and which is like he empowers all of the assistant coaches to do their to throw guys out there to run the reps because they're the ones paying attention and charting everything, and they've been other people have other jobs to do as well. Like I'm doing my own thing. I can't tell you to go put Kenyatta Jackson in the game, but they want to continue to rotate because they want to be fresh in the fourth quarter, and when they're not, things go poorly. It was somebody asked, are Jack or JT Tuimoloau close to having a breakout? And the answer was they want to.
Boy, that's both an accurate answer and not an answer at all.
So that's why there was not a lot from Ryan Day today.
Yeah, and this is one of these weeks when you can just the mood around the building. You can sometimes tell like they're loose, they're relaxed. Last week was annoyed Ryan Day. This week is kind of tense in the building a little bit, and I don't think that's a surprise. And this is one of these things that gets looked at retroactively. And if they lose this week, it's because they were too tight. And if they were happy and relaxed this week and they lost, it's because they were too loose and they weren't taking things seriously. And if they win, then it's because they were laser focused. And if they, if they win and they're joking around, it's because they're relaxed and they're loose. And so this all gets applied retroactively. But yeah, I mean, you can sort of tell just around the building, just the coaches, the players, it's just everyone's kind of in big game mode, and that means there's not a lot of talking about anything.
Well, Lorenzo Styles Jr. was asked about wanting to just kind of answer for the Oregon game. Do you want to not prove the haters wrong or whatever, but do you want to show a better outcome? And he's like, they didn't need that for a wake up call, but they better be awake. And it sure seems like they are. But this is a different game than last week's game, and it's a different game than the Oregon games. And it's one where Ohio State certainly has players. I think they defensively they should have no key plan. I think the offense needs to have a better plan than they had last week. And the game planning is half the battle at this point with programs like these that they're playing against.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was a brief conversation about preparing for the noise. I think I kind of heard the answer to a question, and I think the question was about the noise and they pipe in crowd noise. That's nothing new. They've played at Oregon. You feel like that might help a little bit in terms of, okay, you played at Oregon. Yeah, they lost, but the offensive line, which is not the same offensive line, but the offensive line handled themselves okay. You had one drive that really got derailed by false starts. Other than that, it was kind of okay for the most part in terms of handling noise. It's a noon game, not a night game. That probably helps a little bit with the noise. So that's kind of. I think anything else that we haven't touched on from interviews tonight before we get to questions.
No, I think we got it.
All right, let's get to a couple questions.
Drowsy Dragon says he would much rather face Drew Aller at quarterback.
So that's an interesting thing. Would you rather face Drew Aller or Drew Aller and Bo Pribula, or just Bo Pribula? You're going to get both, I'm sure, and that allows Penn State to do a little bit of everything. Pribula's was 11 for 13 last week, so he can throw the football, but he's a better runner than Aller. But Aller had a couple nice, 5-8 yard runs, probably a better passer than Pribula on the whole, more experienced passer certainly. But you guys who can kind of do both things. This is not Davis Warren and Alex Orji, where this guy can only throw the ball and this guy can only run the ball.
Yeah, I think they would call more reads for Pribula when he's in there than they would Aller. But Aller has run the ball pretty decently, well enough over the last couple of years to where it's not something that you can ignore. And Ohio State learned last week that you can't ignore any quarterback when you're talking about Dylan Raiola coming into that game with negative 89 yards rushing and rushing for 43 yards or whatever in the first half. So it's something that's going to be on their mind. But I think the good news, as I've said for Ohio State, is they're going to have to prepare for both quarterbacks anyway. They just have to be alert who's in, when, where, and how.
Yeah. And I think having Lathan Ransom back, and in case you're just joining us late, Ryan basically said, he didn't specifically say Lathan Ransom will play, but he talked about Lathan Ransom having a good day of practice. And so, unless we're just getting straight up lied to, you would assume that Lathan Ransom is, in fact, good to go. Getting him back and having him and Caleb Downs and being able to do, having two veteran guys back there who've been multi-year starters. And Caleb Downs has looked dynamite the last couple games. Lathan Ransom looked dynamite earlier in the year. Jordan Hancock has been really good. It seems like all of those guys in the back end of this defense really set Ohio State up to potentially, not give up a bunch of 60-yard plays, and also potentially be able to make some plays on the back end of the defense too.
And Ryan Davis and Igbenogson had a good day of practice today and had some good reps out there. I don't know if he had the gloves on today.
It sounded like he was asked about that and talked about him having the gloves on.
So you can't grab with them, which kind of hurts you at the line of scrimmage, but still ultimately helps you, recover from that and also not grab while the ball is in the air or being thrown. So, I think there's been some good lessons for the corners over the last couple of games.
All right, next up.
Yeah, Doug Shepard saying it would be perfect if Will Howard breaks the NCAA record for consecutive completions against Penn State.
What is the NCAA record for consecutive completions?
It feels like somebody that asks that question should all in parentheses for like 22.
22, Tate Martell, Ohio State. Yeah.
So let's just say 22.
Yeah. This is very clearly.
East Carolina's Dominic Davis, 36 consecutive passes completed.
Is that one game? That's not in one game.
That's over the course of a couple of games, I'm guessing.
I'm just reading off what Google AI said.
Okay, well. Anyway, so we don't have any idea. I'm not sure.
No. J.T. Barrett was 19 of 19 in the fourth quarter in 2017.
That sounds right. 16 or something like that. Yeah. But Yeah,
That's the baseline.
This is very clearly for Will Howard. We got 10 seconds to talk to Will Howard about the Penn State game this week. Did not get Will Howard as usual on Tuesday. Did not get Will Howard on Wednesday, which during a week when it's a big game and you're playing your home state school is like, okay, that feels like you don't want him to say anything. He probably said enough in that 10 seconds after the Nebraska game. This is very clearly a very big game for Will Howard personally, and as just as an individual, but also obviously for the team, for the college football playoff implications, all that kind of stuff. There's this very narrow window of jacked up enough that it helps you and not too jacked up that you're pressing and you're trying to make a mistake. Because we've seen him make the one or two mistakes. And if he's benefits from the adrenaline in a way that he doesn't make those mistakes, then they probably win the game. And with as close as the game could be, if he makes 3 mistakes instead of 2, that might be enough to lose the game.
Yeah, one of the many questions I wanted to ask Ryan Day yesterday was, have you talked to Will about playing with emotion and not having emotion play with him? That's one of
I've heard that phrase once or twice.
That's one of Ryan Day's favorite things about playing with emotion and Tom not letting emotion play with you. And I think that applies here. This is going to be a game that he wants. I don't know. Should ask him, would you rather have this game or a Big 12 championship? Like when you were there, did you want that one more, or would you rather have this one more? And being where he is now, I'm sure you'd say
he already has a Big 12 championship, beat TCU.
So, but like at that time, that's all you want in the world. Or could you have this one in Happy Valley in your stadium where you dreamed of I could be that guy throwing touchdown passes, and now you can.
Yeah.
Tyler asking, Arvell Reese is able to play the whole game on Saturday.
Yes. So Arvell Reese is targeting call and suspension got overturned on appeal. So yes, Arvell Reese is available for the whole game. That's I don't know how many snaps is Arvell Reese going to get in the first half. I don't know, but just the ability to have him there is potentially. I mean, you want to have all hands on deck. You don't want to be shorthanded in a game like this. So having him back, whether he plays 5 snaps or 15 or 25, whatever the number is, having him back and available is potentially huge for Ohio State because you can have an injury, you can have someone else called for targeting. You never know when your number is going to be called. It's good to have him there whenever that happens.
Well, and you saw him. He started last week because they have 2 packages ready to go. It was the run package, which he's a part of, or the pass package, which was Jordan Hancock. So, I mean, having him ready, having him available in the first quarter, because I don't think it'll be long before we see 3 linebackers out there against an offense that they'll run 21 personnel with two running backs and a tight end without thinking twice.
How do we come up with new designations for personnel if they're going to run 2 quarterback packages? It's going to be like, I don't know how, because the implied number is the wide receiver. So I don't know how you do the personnel numbers.
How do you let people know?
Quarterbacks.
I mean, the A11 was 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But we'll workshop it.
Mozart's Ghost. I've been watching a lot of preview videos for this game. Based on the comments, it feels like 80% of the country wants Ohio State to lose.
That's every game.
Yeah, I don't know that's the Ohio against the world thing is kind of a little bit eye-rolling sometimes, but also I'm sure unless Ohio State is playing Georgia or Ohio State is playing Alabama or Ohio State is playing Notre Dame, I think broadly speaking, think about when you're watching a game at home, you're generally going to be rooting for. If it's Georgia versus Kentucky, I'm sure the majority of people in Ohio are rooting for Kentucky because you're rooting for upsets. It makes college football more fun, all that kind of stuff. To see one of these sports blue bloods go down, and if Ohio State misses the playoff and Penn State gets into the playoff, boy, that's going to be a very different and new thing. You haven't seen Penn State in the playoff. You have seen Ohio State in the playoff a bunch, and Ohio State was broadly expected to be one of the top seeds in the playoff this year. So if they're not, well, that's a big notable story and an exciting upset for people.
Yep.
Next one, Michael was asking, what happened to Carson Hinsman?
What happened to Carson Hinsman? I don't know that anything happened to Carson Hinsman. He missed a bunch of time in August with he was one of those players who was affected by the virus and that kind of took out half of the offensive line room at various times. I think that set him back some. And now, earlier in the show, we talked about the fact that there's a pretty compelling thought process, at least in my mind, that you go with your veteran guys on the offensive line. And if you go with your veteran guys on the offensive line, that's Donovan Jackson at left tackle and Carson Hinzman at left guard. And then you keep Seth McLaughlin and Tager Shabola and Josh Fryer from center to right tackle. I think the answer to what happened to Carson Hinzman is nothing, and you might see quite a bit of Carson Hinzman on Saturday. We'll see. Again, this is not me reporting. This is just me saying, look, if you're thinking this through and thinking about this like a college football coach who wants to minimize, the uncertainties, there's certain uncertainties in terms of what is Donovan Jackson tackle for a game because you haven't seen it yet. What is Carson Hinzman like at left guard because you haven't seen it in the game. But you do have this guy getting a big, loud crowd because you have seen that in the past.
Well, and talk somewhat about Carson in fall camp. They really liked what he was doing in the running game at left guard. So he had good experience. He missed the first little bit with the illness and was kind of down again. But when he was out there, he got a lot of reps at guard. And as they were trying to figure out who their best five were, they knew that Seth McLaughlin was going to be the starter at center. So he got a lot of work to the left side of Seth McLaughlin. So, I mean, it makes sense now. Why hasn't he been out there until now? I mean, I think that's a legitimate question. Like, why is Luke Montgomery the first guy out there? Why is Austin Searveld and Tager Shabola playing right guard together? My thought was that if Seth McLaughlin is also, or if Carson Hinzman is your backup center, you don't necessarily want to move him from that spot until you have to. We haven't really talked about two deeps and things with coaches. We haven't talked to Justin Price since fall camp. So, I don't even know when was the last time the team offensive line was in a game. Was it with Marshall? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe at the end of Michigan State. Like Julian Stain was in, so it was the end of Michigan State.
Yeah.
But I mean, boy, a lot has changed since Michigan State. So whatever two deep was at that point is not the two deep anymore.
Market X, I can't believe I'm saying it, but where the hell is the jet sweep?
So where is the jet sweep? That's another thing that I think maybe took a little bit of vacation and will probably be back. This is going to be about as all hands on deck a game as I think you're going to see from Ohio State, because this is a game that I think they know. You look at Penn State's schedule. This is probably Penn State's only real significant chance for a loss. They're who they have left, Minnesota. Nobody of any great consequence. If they get through this, they're going into Indianapolis almost certainly, unless they really blow it. They're going into Indianapolis 12-0. So you have a chance to go on the road, get a win over a team that's probably finishing the regular season 11-1. Give yourself a tiebreaker over them. Set yourself up for, if Ohio State wins this game, they're in the college football playoff for all intents and purposes. Barring something really stupid happening in November, there should be in the college football playoff with a win in this game. You're breaking it all out this weekend. There's nothing. You're not keeping a bunch of stuff in reserve. This is what do you got? I think you're gonna see a little bit of. You're going to see a little bit of everything, including the jet sweep.
Well, I do think we'll see that as well. It just depends on which side. Can they run it to the left now because of what they'll have there? Maybe they'll feel better about Colonel Tate. We saw you guys throw deep in the first half. Why didn't you necessarily see it in the second half? Did Nebraska take some things away from you? It's like, well, protection became an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they knew that Nebraska was going to change some things up, didn't really dial anything up like that. So it'd be interesting with the jet sweep, the throwing deep is, watching that Penn State Wisconsin game. I'm convinced this Penn State defense can be thrown on.
Yeah, I think almost certainly because, the Wisconsin passing attack was so bad. Braylon Locke was about 50% through most of the game, through one of the worst pick sixes you will ever see. Wisconsin receivers dropped minimally 4 passes that were like right on the hands. It was just an absolute mess. And I just don't, I don't think they were receivers getting hit in the hands because they were not, there were windows to throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a better quarterback. You've got better wide receivers. It feels like that's going to be an opportunity. I don't think they're throwing for 600 yards this weekend, but I think there are going to be opportunities. And if you're trying to, if this is a game that you think 21, 24, 20 points is going to win, you only need to hit a couple of those, and you're most of the way to where you need to get.
Yeah, and the RPO is effective, and that's something where you don't need a ton of pass protection to throw.
Yep.
Or run.
Jeff asking, do you guys think with Julian Fleming now in Happy Valley, does that give Penn State any sort of advantage?
So with Julian Fleming now in Happy Valley, that give Penn State any sort of advantage? I mean,
no.
It's a different coach calling plays, so I don't know that he's got any incredible insight into the Ohio State play calling mindset. He's been on the field for them. He had one catch last weekend against Wisconsin. He had a catch very early for a first down, and then it was wide open on a throw, a little, kind of mid-range throw, wide open, and just took his eyes off the ball and dropped it.
And then they fumbled the next play.
And then and that kind of derailed the drive. So I think that was a third down. I think it was 3rd and 1, and it was like a straight drop back, and it was like, why are you dropping back? And then they throw it, and he just drops it, and then they fumbled the snap on 4th down. So, yeah, he's someone I'm sure they would love to get involved. He is someone who certainly has the talent. He's always had the talent. He's always been a great blocker on the outside. He has thus far in his Penn State career not been an enormous statistical difference maker in the pass game. Doesn't mean it can't happen this weekend.
No.
So far, it hasn't really happened.
Yep.
Tyler, do we think Denzel Burke can get back to his old self?
Can Denzel Burke get back to his old self? I think we saw that happen a little bit last week. He gave up a touchdown on a slant, which there's no cornerback that has ever lived that hasn't given up a completion on a slant. So I think he played better. He was, blew up a couple of screens, had some tackles for loss. The deep pass that was caught and not caught on him was a tremendous throw. That he was right there. So he went back to basics after that Oregon game, and I think you saw that. I think I'm expecting him to continue to play well, as long as you're being fundamental against the receivers. Like they're good. Like Wallace is good.
Wallace,
is good. But nobody scares you like Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Ibuka or Cornell Tate, frankly.
Yeah, and I think you look at Penn State secondary, and Penn State secondary is okay, but probably not as good on the whole as Ohio State secondary, especially when you look at the safety spots. Just Ohio State safeties are such a potential difference maker. Penn State is good on the back end, but they're not. I think if Penn State's going to win this game on defense, they're going to win it at the line of scrimmage, not necessarily in the secondary.
Yeah.
Last one that I have in the queue from Drowsy Dragon. Let me punch it up here. Any chance we see more Edric Houston on Saturday? We need to mix up the defensive line.
So any chance you see more Edric Houston on Saturday, you need to mix up the defensive line. I mean, I would think if you're mixing up the defensive line, you're probably the next guys to get mixed into that mix are Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry, and then Mitchell Melton. I think Edric Houston is probably, Edric Houston is certainly traveling to this game, and he may get some snaps. Situationally, maybe. Larry Johnson has just not been very willing to dig too deep into his bench and rotate too deep into his bench. You saw Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson for the most part last week in the Rushman package. It wasn't that they were subbing JT Tuimoloau and Jackson were out. It was that those guys were coming in for Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton in the Rushman package. So I think it would be a pretty significant surprise to me if suddenly Larry Johnson was rolling 6 deep at the edge position.
Well, and we've talked about this before where Larry Johnson has said, I don't like to put young players in bad positions. And Edric Houston is a young player. I believe he played some interior in the Rushman last week. But I don't expect to see much of him in this one just because of the stakes. And we know the higher the stakes, the lower the number of snaps for anybody outside of the starters. And so, I'm not expecting – frankly, I was kind of surprised to see that he played against Nebraska because it has been kind of quiet. And now being quiet, like you're not expected to play against Oregon, and then there's no game. So I understand being quiet.
Had a quiet bye week.
Yes. Didn't see him do anything.
But, that's to be expected for a true freshman. How many true freshman defensive ends over the years have you seen in top 5 type games in October, early November of their true freshman? I mean, that is a very, very select club. Maybe Nick Bosa, maybe
Joey
Chase
Bosa,
Young, maybe
not even teaching
Yeah.
because he's playing.
Yeah.
The defensive ends they had then, like he wasn't part of that really.
That is a very, very high bar to clear. And I think everyone there's always like, well, why isn't he playing it? It's like, no one's playing it. It's like, well, what about Jeremiah Smith? Like, well, Jeremiah Smith is a separate conversation. In every possible way, Jeremiah Smith is a separate conversation.
Yep.
All right, so we are good. Thank you guys all for joining us on this special live bonus episode. We're going to be back with much more content on Thursday. Tony and I had a Penn State, Wisconsin rewatch episode. Rousing edition of the Buckeye Weekly podcast. You can find that in your podcast feeds a little later on Wednesday night. We'll be back with our bold prediction show. Speaking of rousing things, the bold prediction show will be coming on Thursday. We got a chance to talk to Rich Clark, the executive director of the College Football Playoff Committee. We'll have a bonus episode on that whole conversation and some of the things we learned there. Some really interesting new information on that. We'll get into all that for you. Make sure you are subscribed to the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. Make sure you just type in Buckeye Huddle and subscribe to all those shows. Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, all those shows. Make sure you subscribe to all of them. Give us a 5-star rating review while you're at it. That's always a nice thing you can do. Never remember to ask for that. That's on us. Also, never remember to ask you to give us a thumbs up on these videos, but you should do that. Hit the thumbs up button. That helps other folks find these videos. And finally, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. We have a ton of content coming for you. We'll be live in Pennsylvania on Friday for the Buckeyes team arrival. Full day of content on Saturday from Beaver Stadium pregame show, live postgame show, all that and more. YouTube.com/Buckeye Huddle. And finally, one more thing. BuckeyeHuddle.com, Tony. That's where you can find Tony Kevin and I covering the team, Mark covering recruiting, our whole team of X's Nose Screwers there, making you a smarter football fan. All at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.